Okay, so PEGASUS is a study that looks at post-MI patients, so patients who are at least 1 year away from their original event, and it looks at two different doses of ticagrelor, 60 milligrams and 90 milligrams, plus aspirin versus just aspirin and placebo. Primary endpoint was to see if we would show a difference in the composite of CV death, stroke and MI, and the great news is that's absolutely what it did. So both arms of ticagrelor actually showed a significant difference. So I guess one of the reasons why PEGASUS is so important is there's a significant unmet need in that patient population. So if you look at patients who had an event at least a year ago, at the moment the standard of care is aspirin, and yet in those patients you have a 20% chance of a further event in 1 to 3 years. So 1 in 5 are going to either have a heart attack or actually suffer a cardiovascular death. And therefore it is incredibly important that we look at what other medications we can use in those patients to try and address that level of risk. You know, the data from today shows that that's absolutely the case. It reduced the overall primary endpoint, cardiovascular death, stroke and MI, and actually one of the really cool things is that achieving the primary endpoint was made up of improvements in each of the individual endpoints as well, so it certainly seems to be the case. I think most people are seeing that the results are relatively straightforward, but at the same time extremely pleasing. And they play out in the way that you want them to play out. The first thing is that it hits its primary endpoint, and then you don't want any nasty surprises beyond that. So it's great consistency, no heterogeneity in any of the individual groups. The adverse event profile is pretty much as you would expect it to be. So although it's where we expected it to be, I actually think that's a really great result. Where PEGASUS fits in, the PEGASUS part of what we call the Parthenon clinical trials program. It's actually the largest clinical trials program that AstraZeneca have ever embarked upon. 5 major studies. Plato looked at the post-ACS population up to 12 months. This one goes, if you like, the next step on from that and looks at the patients who had an event 12 months ago. And then subsequent to that we have Socrates, which will read out in around about a year, which is patients who've had a stroke or a TIA. After that, Euclid, peripheral arterial disease, and then again around about a year after that there's a study called Themis, which is in type 2 diabetes. Now when you look at the results of the Plato study, it was pretty spectacular to show difference in an outcome study against a wonderful drug like clopidogrel. Then I guess from our perspective you think, well, we've got something really significant here, so we need to invest heavily in it to make sure that we answer the questions of exactly how and when this product should be used and what kind of utility and in what kind of areas. You invest in something like that and obviously you take a good degree of risk, because it'd be incredible if everything plays out perfectly for you, but you know, this is making us feel we have something really, really special within this product, and I think that if you just hear the buzz around this meeting, that seems to be the impression of much of the medical community as well.